She was immortal, but he held the power to destroy her. Part 1. The stars had been her home for 12,000 years. HerHFY had watched empires rise and fall across 100 different worlds. She had seen species discover fire and then burn themselves to nothing. She had witnessed the birth of new suns and the death of old ones. Time meant nothing to her. Death meant even less. She was a Valorian, one of the ancient ones. Her people had conquered mortality so long ago that they had forgotten what it felt like to fear the end. Their bodies healed from any wound. Their minds preserved every memory across the endless centuries. No weapon, no disease, no force in the known universe could end a Valorian life. They considered themselves gods. And why would they not? They had earned the title through survival alone. HerHFY spent her eternal existence as an observer. She traveled from world to world, studying the lesser species that struggled through their brief lives. She recorded their cultures, their wars, their small victories and great failures. It was her purpose, given to her by the council of her people. Watch, learn, report, never interfere. She had done this work for so long that she had forgotten why it mattered. When her silver vessel descended through the clouds of a small blue planet called Earth, she expected nothing new. Her record showed that humanity was young, barely 10,000 years into their civilization. They had not yet reached the stars. They still fought wars over patches of land and disagreed about which invisible beings controlled the universe. Primitive, unremarkable, species that would likely destroy itself within a few more centuries. HerHFY landed her vessel in a dense forest in the northern region of a landmass the humans called North America. The ship folded itself into a form too small for human eyes to detect and nestled among the roots of an ancient tree. She would retrieve it when her observations were complete. She had studied human biology during her approach. Their forms were simple enough to copy. She adjusted her appearance to match theirs, choosing the shape of a female with dark hair and pale eyes. Her true form was something humans could not comprehend, a being of light and energy that existed across multiple dimensions at once. But this shell would serve her purpose. She walked out of the forest and found herself on the edge of a small town near the ocean. The sign at the road said Crestwood, Oregon. The air smelled of salt and pine. HerHFY had visited thousands of worlds, but she paused for a moment to take in the scent. It was pleasant in a way she had not expected. The town was quiet. Small buildings lined the main street, their windows glowing with warm light. Humans moved about their evening routines, walking dogs, carrying groceries, laughing with one another. HerHFY watched them with the same detachment she had always felt. They were like insects to her, interesting in their patterns but ultimately insignificant. She walked into a small shop that sold hot drinks. The humans called it coffee, a bitter liquid that they consumed in great quantities. HerHFY had no need for food or drink, but she wanted to observe them in their natural behavior. She stood in line and watched. A man entered the shop behind her. He was tall, with brown hair that curled slightly at his ears and eyes the color of the sea outside. He wore a jacket with the name of some institution on the chest. He was looking at his phone and not paying attention to where he walked. He bumped into her. His drink, which he had been carrying from another shop, spilled across her arm. HerHFY looked down at the brown liquid staining her sleeve. In 12,000 years, no being had ever dared to touch her without permission. On her world, such an offense would be punished with exile or worse, but the man just looked at her with wide eyes full of genuine concern. "Oh no, I am so sorry," he said. His voice was warm and honest. "That was completely my fault. I was not watching where I was going. Please, let me buy you whatever you were going to order, and I will pay for cleaning that jacket. I feel terrible." HerHFY studied him. She had expected fear or dismissal, or perhaps even aggression. These were the responses she had observed in most species when they made mistakes. But this human seemed truly upset that he had caused her minor trouble. "It is not necessary," she said. "No, I insist." He smiled at her, and the expression was so open and kind that SciFi found herself confused. "I am Cole Harris. I work at the Marine Research Station down by the harbor. I am not usually this clumsy, I promise." He extended his hand. SciFi knew this was a human greeting. She took it, expecting nothing. But when their skin touched, something strange happened. A small spark seemed to jump between them, invisible but present. SciFi felt a flutter in her chest, in the place where humans kept their hearts. It was brief, barely noticeable. She dismissed it as a glitch in her physical form. "I am Sarah," she said, using a shortened version of her name. "Sarah, that is a beautiful name." Cole released her hand and gestured toward the counter. "Please, what can I get you?" She ordered something at random, and he paid for it along with his own replacement drink. They stood together for a moment near the window, and he told her about his work. He studied ocean life, particularly creatures that had been injured by pollution or boats. He helped heal them and return them to the sea. "Why?" SciFi asked. Cole looked at her as if the question made no sense. "Because they deserve to live. Because they feel pain, and I can help stop it. Is there any better reason to do something?" SciFi had no answer. In 12,000 years, she had never met a being who helped others simply because they could. Her people did not operate this way. Power was for control, not for kindness. She found herself agreeing to walk with him to the harbor. She told herself it was for observation purposes. He was an interesting specimen, nothing more. The research station was a small building at the edge of the water. Cole showed her the tanks where injured seals and seabirds were recovering. He spoke to each animal softly, telling them they were safe, that they would go home soon. SciFi watched him with growing confusion. This man had no power, no immortality, no cosmic significance. He would live perhaps 80 years if he was fortunate, and then he would cease to exist forever. And yet he spent his brief time caring for creatures even more fragile than himself. She stayed in Crestwood that night. She told herself she would leave in the morning, return to her vessel, and continue her journey across the stars. Earth had nothing to offer an immortal, but when morning came, she did not leave. Something about Cole Harris had caught her attention in a way nothing had for thousands of years. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to understand why a creature so small and temporary could seem so full of. Light thought she had no idea that understanding him would change. Everything thought she had no idea that this ordinary human held the power to end her eternal life, and she had no idea that she would one day be grateful for it. She was immortal, but he held the power to destroy her part 2-3 weeks past, and SciFi did not leave Earth. She told herself it was research. She told herself she was simply being thorough in her observation of this young species. But deep in the parts of herself that she rarely examined, she knew the truth. She was staying because of Cole Harris. Every day, she found reasons to visit the Marine Research Station. She would bring coffee from the shop in town, the same one where they had first met. Cole always smiled when he saw her. That open and honest expression that still confused her after all this time. "Sarah, you are here again," he would say. "Do you not have anywhere else to be?" She did not. For the first time in 12,000 years, she had nowhere else she wanted to be. She watched him work. He had a gentleness with the injured animals that she had never seen in any species. A seal with a torn flipper would calm the moment Cole spoke to it. A seabird with oil on its feathers would hold still while he cleaned it. They trusted him completely. "How do you do that?" she asked him one afternoon. Cole looked up from the pelican he was treating. "Do what?" Make them trust you. They do not know you. They do not understand that you are trying to help. And yet they let you touch them. He thought about this for a moment. I think they can feel it. Animals are smarter than we give them credit for. They know when someone wants to hurt them, and they know when someone wants to help. I just try to be calm and kind, and they respond to that. HerHFY considered this. On her world, trust was earned through demonstrations of power. You proved yourself stronger, and others followed. The idea that kindness alone could create bonds was foreign to her, but she was beginning to believe it. Autumn arrived, and the storms came with it. The Oregon coast turned gray and violent, with waves crashing against the rocks and wind howling through the streets of Crestwood. Most people stayed inside during these storms. Cole did not. HerHFY was walking along the harbor when she saw him running toward the water. A fishing boat had capsized offshore, and she could see the shapes of people struggling in the waves. Without hesitation, Cole stripped off his jacket and dove into the sea. She stood frozen on the shore. In 12,000 years, she had watched countless beings die. She had observed disasters and wars and extinctions with perfect detachment. It was not her place to interfere. She was an observer, nothing more. But watching Cole disappear beneath those black waves, something broke inside her. She did not make a conscious decision. Her body simply moved. She ran to the edge of the rocks and threw herself into the water. The cold hit her like a wall. Her human form was not designed for these temperatures. She could feel the systems that maintained her physical shell struggling to adapt. But she pushed forward, swimming toward where she had last seen Cole. She found him 20 meters from shore. He was holding an unconscious fisherman above the water, but the current was too strong. He was being pulled out to sea. HerHFY grabbed him. She wrapped one arm around his chest and the other around the fisherman and began to swim. Her strength was greater than any human, but in this form, it was still limited. Every stroke was a battle against the ocean itself. She did not stop. Minutes later, she dragged both men onto the rocky shore. Other humans had gathered, and they rushed forward to help the fisherman. But HerHFY only looked at Cole. He was coughing up seawater, his body shaking from the cold. But he was alive. He opened his eyes and saw her kneeling over him. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. "You saved me," he said. "Yes, you jumped into that water to save me." HerHFY did not know what to say. She had broken the most fundamental rule of her existence. She had interfered. And she had done it without thinking, without calculation, without any consideration for the consequences. She had done it because she could not bear to watch him die. That night, she returned to her vessel hidden in the forest. She ran a full diagnostic on her physical form, expecting to find damage from the cold water and the strain of the rescue. What she found was much worse. Her cellular regeneration rate had decreased by 2%. This was impossible. Valorian biology did not degrade. Their cells renewed themselves perfectly, endlessly, without error. That was the source of their immortality, but something had changed. She traced the anomaly to her cardiovascular system, the simulated heart that pumped blood through her human form. The cells around it were different now. They were aging. She ran the diagnostic again. Same result. She ran it a third time. Same result. HerHFY sat in her vessel for a long time, staring at the data. She thought about every moment since her arrival on Earth. She thought about the coffee shop, the handshake, the long conversations at the research station. She thought about the spark she had felt when she first touched Cole Harris. She thought about the storm and the way her heart had raced when she saw him in the water. Correlation analysis pointed to one conclusion. Her degradation had begun when she met Cole. It accelerated when she was near him. It reached its highest rate during moments of emotional intensity. The human was doing something to her. His presence was somehow interfering with her immortal biology. By all logic, she should leave Earth immediately. She should report this to the Valorian Council and have the anomaly studied. Cole Harris might be dangerous, not just to her, but to her entire species. She should leave and never return. But when she thought about never seeing him again, that strange flutter returned to her chest. The same flutter she had felt when they first touched. The same flutter that had sent her into the storm after him. She realized, with a shock that rippled through her entire being, that she did not want to leave. For 12,000 years, she had wanted nothing. She had observed and recorded and continued her empty existence without desire or purpose. She had been immortal and invulnerable and completely alone. Now she wanted something. She wanted to see Cole smile at her. She wanted to hear him talk about the animals he was healing. She wanted to understand why a creature so fragile could make her feel so alive. She was an immortal being who had watched civilizations crumble to dust. And she was terrified of a man who worked at a marine research station in a small coastal town. Saraphel left her vessel and walked back toward Crestwood. The storm had passed, and the stars were visible above the trees. She looked up at them, those distant lights that had been her companions for so long. For the first time, they seemed very far away. She found Cole sitting on the bench outside the research station. He was wrapped in a blanket, watching the waves. He looked up when he heard her approach. "I was hoping you would come back," he said. She sat down beside him. The bench was cold, and she could feel the wood through her thin clothes. She could feel everything more sharply now, as if her senses had been awakened from a long sleep. "Why did you jump into that water?" she asked him. Cole looked at her with confusion. "Because people were drowning. You could have died." "Yes." "Then why?" He was quiet for a moment. The waves crashed against the rocks below them, steady and eternal. "Because helping them was more important than being safe," he said finally. "Because I would rather die trying to save someone than live knowing I did nothing." Saraphel felt something shift inside her. A wall she had built over thousands of years began to crack. She did not understand humans. She did not understand their willingness to sacrifice, their capacity for kindness, their stubborn insistence on caring for creatures weaker than themselves. But she wanted to understand. For the first time in her endless existence, she wanted to understand something more than she wanted to survive. She stayed on the bench beside Cole until the sun rose over the ocean. And she did not tell him that his presence was slowly killing her. She was immortal, but he held the power to destroy her. Part 3. The weeks turned into months. Winter wrapped Crestwood in fog and rain, and Saraphel remained. She could feel herself changing. The degradation in her cells continued, slow but steady. Every time she saw Cole, every time they talked or laughed or sat together watching the sea, her immortal body weakened a little more. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt more alive than she had in 12,000 years. But she needed to understand what was happening. She needed to know why this one human, out of all the beings she had encountered across the universe, had the power to affect her so deeply. She began her investigation in secret. At night, while Cole slept in his small apartment near the harbor, Saraphel collected data. She analyzed samples of his hair left on his jacket. She recorded the electromagnetic patterns that surrounded him when he moved. She studied his genetic code using the advanced technology hidden in her vessel. Everything appeared normal. His DNA was standard human. His biology showed nothing unusual. By every measure, Cole Harris was an ordinary member of his species. But ordinary humans did not cause immortals to age. She expanded her research. She studied other humans in Crestwood, collecting data without their knowledge. She compared their biological signatures to Cole's, searching for any difference that might explain his effect on her. After weeks of analysis, she finally found it. All humans possessed a faint electromagnetic field around their bodies. This was known science, even by human standards. Their hearts produced electrical signals. Their brains generated measurable activity. Their nervous systems created tiny currents that flowed through their flesh. But there was something else. Something the humans themselves had never detected, layered beneath. Their physical electromagnetic signatures was another frequency entirely. It was subtle, almost invisible even to Valorian sensors. But it was there, humming through every human she observed. HerHFY had studied thousands of species across the galaxy. She had never encountered anything like this. She called it the resonance. It was not just electromagnetic. It existed on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, extending beyond the physical world into realms that most species could not perceive. It connected humans to each other across vast distances. It allowed them to sense things they could not see, to feel emotions that were not their own, to form bonds that defied logical explanation. The humans had simple words for this resonance. They called it empathy. They called it love. They called it the heart. They did not realize they were describing a force more powerful than anything they, Valorians, had ever encountered. And in Cole Harris. This resonance was unusually strong. HerHFY ran the numbers again and again. Cole's empathic frequency was nearly 3 times higher than the average human. When he felt something deeply, his resonance expanded outward like ripples on water. It touched everything around him. It changed whatever it touched. It was changing her. Every time she experienced an emotion near Cole, her cells tried to synchronize with his resonance. Her immortal biology, designed to remain constant across eternity, was being pulled towards something new. His empathy was teaching her body how to feel. And feeling, it seemed, came with a price. HerHFY sat in her vessel, surrounded by holographic displays of data, and tried to understand the implications. Her people had conquered death by eliminating variation. Their cells renewed themselves identically, perfectly, forever. They did not change because change led to decay, and decay led to death. But humans were different. They changed constantly. They grew and learned and felt and suffered. Their cells aged and died and were replaced by new ones that were slightly different from before. Their entire existence was a process of constant transformation. This was why they died. But it was also why they lived. The Valorians had sacrificed something when they became immortal. HerHFY was only now beginning to understand what it was. They had traded the ability to truly feel for the ability to endure. They experienced existence without experiencing life. Cole had shown her what they were missing. She thought about the way he smiled when he released a healed animal back into the ocean. She thought about the tears he had shed when one of his patients died, despite his efforts. She thought about the storm and the way he had thrown himself into the waves without hesitation. He felt everything. Joy and sorrow, hope and fear, love and grief. His brief life was filled with experiences that HerHFY had never allowed herself to have. And when she was near him, she felt them too. That flutter in her chest when he smiled at her. The warmth that spread through her body when they talked late into the night. The sharp pain she had felt when she saw him drowning in the storm. These were emotions. Real emotions. Not the pale simulations she had experienced for thousands of years, but the genuine article. Cole was teaching her how to feel. And in doing so, he was teaching her how to die. She should have been horrified. She should have fled back to her people and demanded that they find a cure. Any Valorian would choose immortality over emotion. That was their fundamental truth. But HerHFY was no longer certain it was her truth. One evening, she sat with Cole on the beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He was talking about his childhood, about the summers he had spent on this same beach with his father, learning to love the ocean. "He died when I was 17, Cole said quietly. "Heart attack. No warning. He was here one day and gone the next. I am sorry, HFY said. The words felt strange in her mouth. She had never offered condolences before. Death had always been an abstract concept to her, something that happened to other species. It was a long time ago. Cole picked up a small stone and turned it over in his fingers. But I still missed him. I think about him every day. Does it hurt? Remembering someone who is gone? Cole thought about this. Yes, but it is a good hurt, if that makes sense. The pain means the love was real. If I did not miss him, it would mean he did not matter. And he mattered more than anything. HFY felt something shift inside her. Another crack in the walls she had built across millennia. My people do not experience loss, she said slowly. We do not die. We do not form attachments that can be broken. We simply continue forever, unchanged. Cole looked at her. That sounds lonely. I never thought of it that way. She paused. I never thought of it at all. He put down the stone and turned to face her fully. His eyes were serious now, searching her face as if looking for something hidden. Sarah, who are you really? The question hit her like a physical force. She had been so careful to maintain her disguise, to appear human in every way. But Cole was looking at her as if he could see through all her defenses. What do you mean? She asked. I mean that I have known you for months now. And you are wonderful and kind, and I enjoy every moment we spend together. But sometimes you say things that do not make sense. Sometimes you look at the world like you are seeing it for the first time. And sometimes, when I look into your eyes, I feel like I am looking at something much older and much sadder than a woman who wandered into my coffee shop. HFY did not know what to say. She had spent 12,000 years hiding her true nature from lesser species. She had never been seen. She had never been known. But Cole Harris, an ordinary human, was seeing her now, and she realized, with a terror and a hope she had never felt before, that she wanted to be known. If I told you the truth, she said quietly, you might not believe me. Try me. She looked at him. This fragile mortal who had somehow changed everything she understood about existence. She thought about the resonance that connected him to his species, the empathy that made him jump into storms to save strangers, the love he still carried for a father who had been dead for 15 years. She thought about the walls she had built and the walls he had already broken, and she made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. I am not human, she said. I am not even from this world. I have lived for 12,000 years, and I came to Earth to observe your species. I thought you were primitive and unimportant. I was wrong. She waited for him to laugh or run or look at her with fear. Instead, he just nodded slowly, as if she had confirmed something he already suspected. Okay, he said. Tell me more. And so she did. She was immortal, but he held the power to destroy her. Part 4. She told him everything. She told him about the Valorians, the ancient race that had conquered death itself. She told him about her 12,000 years of existence, the countless worlds she had visited, the civilizations she had watched rise and fall. She told him about her mission to observe humanity and report back to her people. And she told him the truth about what was happening to her. You are killing me, she said simply. Your presence, your empathy, whatever force lives inside you, it is breaking down my immortality. Every day I spend with you, I become more mortal. Cole sat in stunned silence. The beach was dark now, the sun long gone, and the only light came from the stars above and the distant glow of Crestwood behind them. I do not understand, he finally said. How can I be doing that? I am just a person. You are not just anything. HerHFY looked up at the stars, searching for the distant light of her homeworld. Humanity evolved something my people never anticipated. a kind of resonance that connects you to each other and to the universe itself. You call it emotion, but it is much more than that. It is a force that can reach across dimensions, that can touch beings your science cannot even detect. And this force is hurting you? No. She turned back to face him. It is changing me. There is a difference. Cole was quiet for a long moment. She could see him processing everything she had told him, trying to fit it into his understanding of reality. You could have left, he said, when you first realized what was happening. You could have gone back to your ship and flown away. Why did you stay? The question cut to the heart of everything SciFi had been struggling with for months. She thought about the 12,000 years she had spent drifting through the cosmos, alone and unchanging. She thought about the empty existence she had accepted as normal. Because for the first time in my life, I did not want to leave, she said. Because being with you, feeling what you have taught me to feel, is worth more than another 10,000 years of emptiness. I stayed because you showed me what it means to be alive. Cole reached out and took her hand. His skin was warm against hers, and she could feel his resonance pulsing through the contact. It was like standing near a fire after spending centuries in the cold. I do not want to hurt you, he said. You are not hurting me. You are saving me. They sat together in the darkness, two beings from different worlds, connected by something neither of them fully understood. But their peace was about to be shattered. 3 days later, SciFi felt them coming. She was walking along the harbor when a sharp sensation pierced her consciousness. It was a Valorian signal, a communication frequency that her people used across the vast distances of space. Someone was nearby. She looked up and saw the ship descending through the clouds. It was larger than hers, a patrol vessel designed for enforcement rather than observation. Her heart, that borrowed organ that now beat with human rhythm, began to race. They had found her. The ship landed in the forest outside town, and SciFi ran to meet it. She had to reach them before they did anything else. She had to explain. 3 figures emerged from the vessel. She recognized their leader immediately. His name was Kale, and he was old even by Valorian standards. He had been one of her teachers in the early centuries of her existence. His face was cold and expressionless, the face of a being who had forgotten how to feel long before humanity was born. SciFi, he said, you have been silent for too long. The council grew concerned. I am fine. My observation is ongoing. Your observation? Kale stepped closer, and his eyes narrowed. We have been monitoring your biosignature from orbit. You are degrading. Your cellular regeneration has decreased by almost 8%. That is not fine. That is contamination. The 2 enforcers behind him moved to flank her. SciFi held her ground. I have discovered something important, she said. The humans possess abilities we never knew about. There is a resonance in them, a force that can affect beings on higher dimensional planes. This is valuable information for the Council. The Council already knows. Kale's voice was flat. We have analyzed your data transmissions. We understand what is happening to you. The human is doing this. The one you have been spending time with. Cole is not a threat. He does not even know what he is capable of. That makes him more dangerous, not less. Kale gestured to the enforcers. We have come to eliminate the contamination at its source. Once the human is destroyed, your regeneration should stabilize. You will return to normal. SciFi felt something surge through her that she had never experienced before. It was hot and fierce, an overwhelming dot. It was rage. You will not touch him. Kale tilted his head, studying her with clinical detachment. You are defending Immortal, a creature that will die in a few decades, regardless of what we do. This is irrational. Maybe it is, but I will not let you harm him. She stood between them and the path to Crestwood. She knew she could not defeat 3 Valarians in combat, especially not in her weakened state. But she would try. She would die trying if she had to dot, and then Cole stepped out of the trees behind her. "Sarah? I saw the ship come down. What is going on?" Serafel's blood ran cold. "Cole, run. Get away from here." But it was too late. Cale had seen him. "So this is the source of your contamination." He began walking toward Cole, the enforcers following close behind. A small and fragile thing. It is remarkable that such a creature could cause such damage. Cole did not run. He stood his ground, looking at the approaching immortals with fear, but also with something else. Determination. "I do not know what is happening here," he said. "But whatever it is, leave Sarah alone." Cale laughed. It was a cold sound, empty of real amusement. The mortal wishes to protect an immortal. How absurd. He reached out to grab Cole. Serafel screamed and threw herself forward. But the enforcers caught her and held her back. But when Cale's hand touched Cole's shoulder, something unexpected happened. Cale gasped. His hand began to tremble. He tried to pull away, but he seemed unable to move. "What is this?" His voice was suddenly uncertain. "What are you doing to me?" Cole looked just as confused as Cale did. "I am not doing anything." But Sarafel understood. Cole's resonance was responding to the threat. His empathy, his capacity for feeling, was projecting outward with unprecedented force. And when it encountered the cold void of a Valorian consciousness, it did not stop at the surface. It pushed inside. Cale staggered backward, releasing Cole. His eyes were wide now, and his face, that perfect mask of ancient indifference, was twisting with emotions he had not felt in millennia. "What is this?" He gasped again. "What am I feeling?" "You are feeling what you abandoned," Sarafel said. The enforcers had released her, too distracted by their leader's distress to maintain their grip. "You are feeling what we all abandoned when we chose immortality over life." Cale fell to his knees. The enforcers rushed to help him, but when they touched him, the same effect spread to them. Cole's resonance was amplifying, feeding on their response, growing stronger with every passing second. Within moments, all 3 Valorians were on the ground, overwhelmed by a torrent of emotions they had not experienced in thousands of years. "Make it stop," Cale begged. "Please, make it stop." Cole looked at Sarafel, desperate and confused. "How do I stop it?" "You do not need to." She walked to him and took his hand. The contact seemed to calm his resonance, focusing it away from the struggling immortals. "They will recover, but they will never be the same." She looked down at Cale, at this ancient being who had taught her that emotions were weakness, that connection was contamination, that endless existence was the highest goal. "Go back to your ship," she said. "Tell the council what you found here. Tell them that humanity is not to be disturbed. Tell them that if they send anyone else, this will happen again. And tell them that Sarafel is no longer one of you." Cale looked up at her with eyes full of terror and something that might have been grief. "You would choose death over eternity?" Sarafel smiled. It was a genuine smile, the kind she had learned from watching Cole. "I would choose life over emptiness. There is a difference." The Valorians retreated to their ship. They left Earth's atmosphere within the hour and never returned. Cole and Sarafel stood together in the forest, watching the vessel disappear into the night sky. "What happens now?" Cole asked. Sarafel squeezed his hand. She could feel her heart beating, that mortal rhythm that was now irreversibly her own. "Now we live," she said, "for as long as we have, together." She was immortal, but he held the power to destroy her part 5 years past. Sarafel stayed in Crestwood. She married Cole in a small ceremony on the beach where they had shared so many conversations. She learned to cook human food and adopted a dog from the local shelter. She worked alongside Cole at the research station, caring for injured animals and releasing them back into the sea. She learned what it meant to be human. The Valorian Council kept their distance. After Kale's report, Earth was classified as a quarantine world. No observation vessels were sent. No contact was attempted. Humanity continued their lives unaware that an ancient race of immortals had decided they were too dangerous to approach. Sci-Fi sometimes thought about her people, drifting through the cosmos in their perfect vessels, unchanged and unchanging across the endless centuries. She felt something for them that she could not have understood before her time on Earth. Pity that her body continued to age. The process was slow by human standards, but irreversible. Her cells no longer regenerated with perfect efficiency. Her hair began to show threads of gray. Fine lines appeared at the corners of her eyes. She loved every one of them. Cole worried sometimes. She could see it in the way he looked at her. The guilt that flickered behind his eyes when he thought she was not watching. "I did this to you," he said one night, lying beside her in the darkness of their small bedroom. "I took away your immortality." Sci-Fi turned to face him. The moonlight through the window made his features soft, and she traced the familiar lines of his face with her fingertips. "You gave me something better," she said. "What could be better than living forever? Living at all?" She pressed her palm against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "I existed for 12,000 years, Cole. I saw wonders that would fill 100 human lifetimes. But I never felt them. I watched civilizations rise and fall, and it meant nothing to me. I was a ghost drifting through the universe, observing, but never participating." She moved closer to him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Then I met you, and you showed me what I had been missing. The joy of a good meal, the peace of a sunset, the warmth of being held by someone who loves you. These small things that humans take for granted, they are miracles, Cole. They are miracles, and I never knew." He wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. "I love you," he said. "I know. That is the greatest miracle of all." Years continued to pass. The seasons cycled through their eternal patterns. Storms came and went. Animals were healed and released. The small town of Crestwood grew and changed, as all things grow and change. Sci-Fi wrote a journal. She had always documented her observations, but now she wrote something different. She wrote about what she had learned, about humanity, about mortality, about the strange and beautiful gift of a finite life. She wrote about love. "My people believed that immortality was the ultimate achievement," she wrote. "We conquered death and thought ourselves gods. But we missed something important. Death is not the enemy of life. It is part of life. It gives meaning to every moment. It makes love precious and joy sacred and pain worthwhile." She wrote about Cole. "He is not special by the standards of the universe. He cannot travel between stars or manipulate energy or exist across multiple dimensions. He will live perhaps 80 years, and then he will be gone forever. By Valorian standards, his existence is insignificant. But the Valorians are wrong. Cole Harris is the most significant being I have ever known. Not because of what he can do, but because of what he chooses to do. He chooses to be kind. He chooses to help. He chooses to love. And those choices matter more than all the power in the cosmos." She wrote about herself. "I am dying. The word still feels strange, but it no longer frightens me. I have perhaps 50 years left, maybe more, maybe less. It is nothing compared to the eternity I have already lived. But it is everything compared to the emptiness that came before. I am grateful. Grateful for this planet and these people. Grateful for the small town and the research station and the dog that sleeps at our feet. Grateful for cold mornings and hot coffee and the way the sun looks when it rises over the ocean. Grateful for every moment that I have been allowed to feel. I was immortal once. I thought that made me powerful. Now I know the truth. Mortality is not weakness. It is the source of everything that matters. The Valorians gave up their ability to truly live when they conquered death. Humanity kept theirs, and that is why they are the most powerful species I have ever encountered. Not because they can destroy gods, but because they taught one how to be human. 20 years after the night on the beach when she had told Cole the truth, HerHFY stood at the edge of the water with her journal in her hands. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Cole was beside her, older now, his hair more gray than brown. But his eyes still carried that same warmth she had seen in the coffee shop so long ago. Their dog, a gray-muzzled creature they had named Sailor, dozed on the blanket behind them. "Do you ever regret it?" Cole asked. HerHFY looked at him. "Regret what?" "Staying. Giving up eternity for this." He gestured at the beach, the town, the ordinary life they had built together. She thought about the question carefully. She thought about the 12,000 years she had spent wandering the stars, cold and untouchable. She thought about the being she had been when she arrived on Earth, that ghost of a person who watched without feeling. Then she thought about the 20 years since, the laughter and the tears, the small victories and the painful losses, the mornings when she woke up beside Cole and felt a happiness that transcended anything she had experienced in all her millennia of existence. "No," she said. "Not for a single moment." Cole took her hand. They stood together, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. "When I first met you," he said, "in that coffee shop, when I spilled my drink on your jacket, I felt something. I did not know what it was then. I thought it was just attraction or embarrassment or some combination of the two. What was it?" "Recognition." He turned to look at her. "I think some part of me knew, even then, that you were different. That meeting you was going to change everything. I did not understand how or why, but I felt it." HerHFY smiled. "Your resonance. You were perceiving something your conscious mind could not process. Maybe." He smiled back. "Or maybe I just fell in love at first sight. Is there a difference?" He laughed, that warm and honest sound she had come to treasure above all others. "Probably not." The sun touched the ocean, and the sky blazed with light. HerHFY closed her eyes and felt the warmth on her face. She felt the sand beneath her feet, and the wind in her hair, and Cole's hand in hers. She felt alive. She was mortal now. Her time was limited. One day, decades in the future, she would close her eyes and not open them again. She would cease to exist, just like every human who had ever lived. And she was grateful, because she finally understood something that had eluded her for 12,000 years. Existence was not the same as life. Surviving was not the same as living. The Valorians had achieved immortality, but they had lost something far more valuable in the exchange. Humanity had found it. Or maybe they had never lost it in the first place. The ability to love. The willingness to feel. The courage to embrace a brief and beautiful existence without demanding more. These were the things that made life worth living. And these were the things that Cole Harris had given her when he walked into that coffee shop and changed everything. HerHFY opened her eyes and looked at her husband. At this ordinary human who had taught an immortal how to die. "Thank you," she said. Cole squeezed her hand. "For what?" "For everything. For the coffee. For the stories. For the storms and the sunsets and the years we have shared. For teaching me that mortality is not a curse, but a gift. For loving me." He leaned over and kissed her gently. "Thank you for staying," he said. The sun disappeared below the horizon, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. HerHFY looked up at them, those distant lights that had once been her only companions. They were beautiful. But they were no longer home. Home was here. Home was this beach and this town and this man beside her. Home was the feeling in her chest when she looked at the life they had built together. Home was love. And for whatever time remained to her, SciFi intended to live every moment of it. She turned away from the stars and walked back up the beach with Cole, their hands still intertwined, their old dog padding along beside them. She did not look back. The end.